Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wist. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Number 25. Labyrinth of Cinema is like the modern Japanese equivalent of Cinema Paradiso, but with quite fanatical images to be seen that looks at the mesmerizing form of cinema, but I felt like it had a 1940s fascist tone to it. Japan does not always apologize for its wartime role in the 1940s, and I do not feel like this project helped in that sense, since it depicts the 1940s with no apology or feeling that Japan did something that was wrong. It is also 3 hours long with loads of weird images that did not really connect, and I must admit, I expected it would not hold my astute attention for that duration of time, but it still managed to entertain me. The time floats by. It may not be 100% socially responsible, but it is a fun riff on the love of cinema and the impact that it has on all communities. I would say if weird images with a fanatical tone are your thing, you'll probably like this one. Number 24. Bleed With Me reminds me of Harpoon in a way, since it is a Canadian horror movie that has three central characters within the confines of one location. However, Harpoon went for laughs, and Bleed With Me certainly does not. While there are laughs and some cheery moments, it is totally stiff, developing into a slow burn horror movie with a payoff that is there, and also in that way reminiscent of the 2018 horror movie The Crescent from Nova Scotia. There is some rural occult business that goes down in this movie with a lot of emotional cruelty. So if you like meanness, you shall receive it in this movie, but you have to be patient as well. There will be blood, I promise, but you may not love the characters or time it takes to get there. But if you do possess such patience, as a few do, and like weird occult concepts in movies, then you'll be satisfied. Number 23. Cosmic Candy is a trip fest comedy that takes place largely in a Greek grocery store filled with eccentric employees, and there are some fun psychedelic images near the end of the movie that makes it all worth it. I happen to work in a grocery store, so it was fun to see the employee dynamics since I deal with that very lifestyle and found that relatable despite the Greek culture being different. Some things are just universal. The trippy images near the end are also sort of relatable since you could become disassociated with the real world in a job and then afterwards also in the state of your life. Even though the plotting characters are sort of forgettable, the scenario is relatable to me and there are some laughs, some vibes, and all around it is a fun time. Number 22. Fried Barry is a fun mind bender from South Africa, looking at a man named Barry, who's very much fried. He does loads of drugs in this movie, lives a hyper but screwed up life, neglecting family for fun. The manic nature of it will make sense for people who have done drugs and understand to an extent the nonstop chaos of things not working around you, all for a habit that is shown explosively in this movie. I enjoyed this movie, and it also got to be a little too manic for me at times. There's just so much. I wish I could breathe a little bit more. But nevertheless, the roller coaster ride that it is can be appreciated contextually. If you like crazy things, this is a crazy thing. And if you want to get a sense of modern South Africa, it is all there to be seen in this movie. There it is, the backdrop for some insanity, some druggy craze business. Number 21. Detention is right up there with Silent Hill with me as a top tier movie adaptation of a video game, which might not be saying much, but I assure you, it is creepy and a fun, loose Taiwanese historical romp. I felt like there was some solid atmospheric shots underlying what is essentially a jump scare movie, which looks at some anguish from Taiwan regarding some cold feelings towards China. The movie is good horror, not great horror, but that will probably be good enough for you if you're looking for something in the genre. It is the goods without being anything too special, but I also wonder how it compares to the game. I don't play games, so I'll never know. But when this movie is creepy, it hooks you in pretty effectively. It's not as good as great Japanese horror movies, but I still like it nonetheless without praising it enthusiastically. Number 20. For the Sake of Vicious is a fun Canadian movie that has nothing paranormal in it, but it seems like a horror movie because of the nonstop and intense violence that never ends. The movie takes place inside someone's house who sees seemingly endless violence in this location for the duration of the film, filled with misunderstanding and then clarity in the third act. Being one noted is not necessarily a bad thing, and budget will restrict things, but this movie is actually entertaining. It has intensity and fear instilled within it. So if that sounds good or bad to you, it is not hard to imagine your opinion of this film. I never found myself get squeamish, but the thought of, oh my God, when will this madness end, crossed my mind a fair bit. And that is kind of fun to see in a low budget Canadian genre film that embraces a rough around the edges quality. Number 19. Johnny To has done some legitimately wonderful movies, but not all of them are standouts, and that is the case, in my opinion, with his new film, Chasing Dream, which is a really good movie, just not a classic. Election is a classic, while Chasing Dream is funny and ultimately some annoying vanilla bubblegum, while also really good at being that. It's about a woman and a man both pursuing their dreams. She is into singing on a Hong Kong equivalent of American Idol, while he is doing some mixed martial arts, and they work themselves into a frenzy of passion and commitment into their respective lines of work. The movie is entertainingly stupid, which is less than I expected from Johnny To, but I'm pleasantly surprised by most movies that I end up liking, so take that for what it's worth. Number 18. Anything for Jackson is a creepy little horror flick from Canada, which looks at some old Satanists trying to pull a Lazarus on their grandson through a by any means necessary approach, which proves to be pretty cold-blooded. Far from likable, this couple kidnaps a pregnant woman to try and make the unborn child their grandson through some dark magic, which may not make any sense, but it is quite intense to see near the end of the movie. Whether it happens or not, I will not tell you, but I will tell you that this movie has excellent sound design and tone for a smaller production. The creators did an excellent job in post because this movie has a great deal of menace. If you like freaky occult movies with lots of scary noises and unlikable characters, then you will certainly be pleased with Anything for Jackson, a movie I watched hot over in the morning and experienced it in a raw and unpleasant manner. Number 17. The Paper Tigers is a fun, lighthearted movie about middle-aged guys getting back into the world of karate despite being middle-aged and doing middle-aged guy stuff like having done too many drugs or raising a kid. The premise of having to fight someone but having to drop your kid off at a soccer game first is pretty funny. And for some reason, I cannot stop thinking about Big Trouble in Little China while watching this movie. That just might go to show the racial disparity in Hollywood, since there are not all that many kinds of movies like this. Once you have eliminated Jackie Chan from the conversation, and there was some trouble getting this movie financed for that reason. Show them that they are wrong, though, by watching this movie because it is enjoyable, perhaps relatable to you, and a unique twist on a martial arts movie by the way of dad jokes that is cute. Number 16. Come True kind of reminded me of Mulholland Drive in texture and The Snake of June in terms of color. It has a feeling that is different than Canadian movies. It is a sensual, haunted one that we need more of. Put the acting and story aside for a second. We need that feeling for our cinema in Canada to compete on an international scale. We need that feeling, to be quite honest. Too often, our films look sterile and lifeless. While the plot of this movie did not blow my mind, the visuals remain with me. It is a movie that goes into your pores and stays there for a while, reminiscent of other stronger films, but nonetheless, you can have a conversation about them in relation to this one. I hope this review is alluring, tempting, as it is void of plot details. It is a praising of the aesthetics. Remember that film is a visual medium, and these scenarios are somewhat interchangeable. So let's focus on great shots like seen in this project more often, Canada. Number 50. The Wretched is a fun coming-of-age horror movie that might remind you of an 80s horror movie if making movies correlations is your thing. You've got some occult stuff, some uncomfortable family dynamics, and cute girls. The Wretched does not try to reinvent the wheel and tries to add to the culture by being a fun movie most of the time, while gross and scary at other times. Also remember that the demographic is more youthful. So if you've seen Pieces 30 times, this may not satisfy you. It has a high level of gross stuff for a teen horror movie, though, so hopefully that gives a good context for you. And although it's not my favorite horror flick as of late, it does have an audience and delivers the goods solidly. The summertime vibe is fun. There's good social dynamics and some solid gross out effects for a younger horror audience. This definitely is a movie to check out. Number 14. Evil Dead fan culture is the subject of Hail to the Deadites, which is fun to see. I get a little sick of seeing all the Marvel, DC, and Star Wars stuff at Ottawa Comic-Con, but love seeing an old horror costume. These horror fans can't really distinguish themselves with the superhero and Star Wars people. They are just fewer in numbers and perhaps are slightly darker souls, but a fan culture documentary about them should be welcomed. Many conventions are attended, lots of these hardcore fans are seen, and most importantly, Bruce frickin' Campbell is in this documentary. I mean, I don't think couldn't have been for this piece to be effective. If you've never been to a fan convention, you'll see what it's like here. And if you're an Evil Dead fan, casual or hardcore, this is a fun documentary to watch. It's not saying anything profound on the subject, but it's great anthropology. Number 13. I was amused when I learned of the existence of Clapboard Jungle, Surviving the Independent Film Business by Justin McConnell. The reason being that he happened to mention that he was working on it with me at another interview. That interview was for his film Life Changer, which I saw was playing during the 2018 edition of the Fantasia International Film Festival. However, I was unable to attend it, and then I saw it later in the year. The interview with Justin for that movie piqued my interest in this documentary, which apparently had clips with George Romero, Tom Savini, and Guillermo del Toro. The documentary does have a lot of talking heads, but it really focused on Justin's triumphs and struggles within the industry, with the industry heads acting like a Greek chorus, echoing how difficult it truly is. Number 12. The Prophet of the Space Aliens is a very entertaining documentary looking at the world's largest UFO cult, led by a man named Rael, and appropriately the cult is Raelians, since it's all about him. While the man is clearly a con to me, and the movie is entertaining while scary, since real people are falling for this, be aware that with any presentation of a cult, it becomes public relations for that cult. Rael uses people well and has been pretty effective in spreading his word. He is likely very affluent, but is most certainly a playboy, encouraging the sweeter lifestyle with the emphasis of happiness in this life. What's not appealing about that? There are solid reasons to get seduced into being a Raelian, but anyone who sees the Raelian sign that is a swastika in the middle of the Star of David and still thinks these people are not full of it, perhaps is the exact person who should not watch this movie. We do not need any new cult members. Number 11. You Cannot Kill David Arquette is truly an inspiring and emotional film about David Arquette, a has-been actor who returns to the glory of wrestling for a life of purpose, and for us, a great documentary. David Arquette was in a bunch of movies, most of them not great, but while promoting his wrestling movie Ready to Rumble, he won, in quotes, the WCW Heavyweight Championship, weighing 150 pounds. This triggered lots of wrestling fans and wrestlers who have invested their lives in this. And David Arquette was hit hard over the head because of this over the years, but lately he's wrestling weirdly enough. This strange turn of events happened in a strange life. It is another true wacky Hollywood story with lots of sadness, addiction, humiliation, but now you can also say dedication, honor, and athleticism. Number 10. The Calmness is a potent piece of work that will easily be misinterpreted even by me, but I do have a reading of it that I go by. I believe it is deliberately contradictory and shows a deep understanding of toxic internet culture. The main character is a female columnist who reads negative, even threatening comments about herself on Twitter for hours per day, until eventually she has had enough and decides to murder those who harass her online. The internet is a real place, we must remember, and everything we say is an extension of real thoughts we have. It is not separate from our identity or ideology. So when she kills these trolls, she's becoming an internet troll in the way she knows, which is through the physical. Some people read it as these trolls deserve what they have coming, but I believe it's more. She has lost the war by engaging with it because it is inherently unserious despite being harmful. This is not a simple revenge fetish piece. Number 9. I, Weirdo stands out to me on reflection as the only beautiful movie that captures obsessive compulsive disorder. It looks at two misfits with this condition who fall in love, and it is beautiful. By the first scene, it becomes captivating to see the routines of someone with OCD, then sharing the same routine with a female afflicted with the same disorder. However, the story does not fixate. It blossoms into a very emotional ending. I do not want to give it away, the story structure and developments, but will assure you it keeps your attention and pulls effectively at your heartstrings in a way that most Asian films simply do not. If you do not like the violence in Asian movies but can handle some weird stuff, I suggest this movie to you because the weirdness is not there for its own sake. It grows into something rewarding that should appeal to a North American audience. And number 8. Actress Julia Fox made a big impression on me acting alongside Adam Sandler in the Safdie brothers' excellent gangster movie Uncut Gems. And this movie, PVT Chat, really was a fun movie to watch despite being alarming and perverted. It follows a sad sack of shit who plays poker online for a living and has given up on real relationships, believing that everything is transactional to begin with because every interaction is someone using someone or being used for something. It certainly is a dark outlook, but he remains as likable as an intelligent creeper can be. But it is Julia Fox who is so captivating as the online dominatrix, whose story we thankfully get to see in the second act. While I like this sort of dark contemporary material, it is emotionally alarming, freaky stuff, so keep that in mind. While I may be enthusiastic about this material, it may not be right for you. Number 7. Senzori takes a peek into the occult through the eyes of a worker who is taking care of an elderly woman in Texas by keeping her clean, keeping her company. You know, the stuff people do who work for the elderly. This is no regular elderly woman, though. Working for her opens up parallel dimensions, and psychedelic images occur later on in this movie, which is gross but subdued, trippy but elegant, and definitely worth it if you're a horror fan. I like the normalcy seen in the movie that leads up to the craziness. It is totally earned, and we are invested in the characters in strange scenarios because so much of the movie beforehand had been believable. This trip into the occult or paranormal is fun. It's not a bunch of obnoxious people in a scenario that no one will believe. And while it takes that leap into the occult, it is done differently, and in fact, it is quite refreshing. Number 6, Kriya is a very cool Indian horror movie that is heavy on vibe and tone. That is ideal for your horror movie watching needs if you have such a need. It shows a man being lured into a mystical family who are performing an exorcism and tapping into dead, dark spirits, using him as a channel with a female in the family luring him in from a nightclub. The man hears and sees a lot of creepy things. The scenes where he hears his dead father are particularly alarming, with loud, haunted, raspy voices take control of us viewers. Then wide-eyed disbelief and panic take over the screen. This is the best occult horror movie I have seen from India, and hopefully it spawns a mini-genre movement within the country to document more ghost stories from a Hindu perspective. That would be an ideal scenario. Number 5, Tezuka's Barbara is my kind of film. It is Japanese, has a jazz score, deals with a delusional author who's very self-important, has some confusing occult things that become clear, and has plenty of sexy scenes. If all those things sound good to you, then this is a movie for you. If those things do not sound good to you, it will not work for you. It is that simple, but perhaps this could also be a gateway for you to like those things in the future. The script is structured well, so scenes flow together as smoothly as the jazz score and the themes of an artist finding something beyond himself that is so beyond it will forever baffle him. It's lots of fun to see. Japan needs more movies like this that really push narrative boundaries, dealing with elements that may not be new, but need to be upgraded and seen for audiences every generation. This is simply a wonderful movie I need you to see. Number 4, Climate of the Hunter got me excited as soon as I saw the trippy color filter they used in particularly important scenes. That is really trippy and effective for this love triangle story set in the woods with a vampire. 2 sisters are living isolated when an old friend comes to join them, an older gentleman that is a silver-tongued devil. He is charming, worldly, cultured, and not a human being. He is a vampire who only has a nefarious purpose. When the movie gets psychedelic, it is hypnotizing in terms of its charismatic intensity of occult images that come and go, but we know will also return at some point, carrying us through the movie with keen interest. It is mainly a talking heads movie, though, so thankfully we've got some real characters with compelling dialogue that makes us interested throughout. Number 3, Feels Good Man tells the hilarious yet unfortunate story of the illustrator of Pepe the Frog, who became synonymous with the alt-right, despite the character being in a slacker bro comic book that literally has nothing political in it. It is pretty funny to see animator Matt Fury, who is a self-described knucklehead, but also completely apolitical, have his life ruined by 4chan and other odious alt-right people on the internet by taking the innocent Pepe and dressing him up as a white supremacist. Pepe likes to pee with his pants down because it feels good, man. And that carefree attitude to something gross looking back is totally applicable to the alt-right, where racism is just a joke, and if you take it seriously, you fell for the joke. The alt-right may be horrible, but this documentary is pretty damn funny. It's colorful and ultimately informative for the screwed up times that we live in. Number 2, The Oak Room is a totally unique gangster movie where, except for a flashback within a conversation, the entire movie is broken into 3 separate conversations in a bar with a total cast of 10 people. Wow. The movie has a bunch of character history and exists within that Ontario rural gangster world. So for those of us in the province, they speak like people we see every day, but hopefully with a little familiarity with their lifestyle, of course. The dialogue is very captivating with stories that are told in a very disjointed manner. So it unfolds unconventionally and has an early Tarantino vibe going on, but each character is relatable to us and they seem real. The movie has some physical violence, but is more effective in giving the feeling that violence is imminent, or that even the exchange incite a sort of emotional violence, not just in the threats, but in passionate intensity that really hooks you in immediately. Number 1, hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm is the greatest trauma movie ever. There, I said it. It has now dethroned Class of Nukem High for that honor, at least for me personally. Maybe you're gasping at this, or maybe you don't even know or care about trauma movies, but hey, some of us do. The reason why this is my favorite trauma movie isn't the critique of obnoxious activism via Twitter or other social media platforms. It is because of Lloyd Kaufman's acting, which I can only compare to a performance by Orson Welles with John Huston. Now, if you think I'm putting this movie up against Citizen Kane or Treasure of Sierra Madre, you are mistaken. It is the theatrical charisma that Kaufman brings to his performance, where it is full of rich melodramatic cadence and a sense of purpose. It is not a matter of agreeing with every level of the subtext within the story or loving every performance. But if this is the final movie directed by Lloyd Kaufman, it is a great note to leave on, given how much of himself he put into the material.